Hiya, thanks for joining me. I'm just going to show you how I created these lovely swirl effect on my layout this week for Hip Kit Club. My challenge was to create a rainbow effect on my layout, and I had to use either clever folding or rolling, and I went with the rolling idea. I don't know if you've seen on the internet quilling, but I was completely inspired by the quilling technique, although I've never done it before. And I thought I would use the cardstock kit to create my own strips for quilling. So this is how I did it, and it's probably not the correct technique at all, but it worked for me, and I really love how it turned out. So the first thing you'll need to do is to cut your paper strips. As I say, I've used the cardstock kit from January 2021, and there are beautiful rainbow colours in there, of course. And in particular, I really like this mint colour and the pink and even the lilac, and I'm not a lilac person. So I've cut my strips about 5 mils wide, and I think the thinner they are, I think they were more difficult to handle, so I stuck with the 5 millimeters. And what I'm going to do now is to try and break the fibres in those paper strips. Because it's quite thick basil card, they can crease rather than curl. So all I've got is, having cut the strips, I'm now, just as you can see there, just using a bone folder just to kind of help them curl a little bit. Now, this causes problems in itself, really, just because now they're so curly, they were quite difficult to handle. So in hindsight, I probably should have curled them the other way as well, so they became a little bit flatter, which is kind of what I do eventually. So I'm going to make a card, and I've cut 2 strips of each colour that I'm going to use, and I'm using 4 colours in total. And I want to arrange my strips now so that I'm layering them up in the order that I want to use them. So I'm going to use the rainbow order. So the lilacs, then the pinks. And as I say, I'm using 2 strips of each for my project, but you can use as many as you want. The one thing I will say, the more strips you have, the more tricky it becomes to do the actual curling bit, which you'll see in a short while. So you see, they're just going all over the place. So you do need a little bit of patience for this technique, for sure. But I think it's really worthwhile, and it just created something completely different. I sat looking at this challenge for ages and ages, trying to mull over how am I going to do it. And then I kind of had the idea about the quilling, and then I bought a quilling kit, and then I thought, well, actually, I didn't use it. And I guess quilling kits may be for more elaborate techniques. So you can literally do this at home. Just need a paper trimmer, your cardstock kit, and some glue, and a bit of patience. So now I've straightened them out a little bit. It's just a little bit easier to handle. And you want to make this stage really neat as possible. So align all the little paper strips. And then once you've got them all arranged, we need to glue them together. Now, as I'm inexperienced at quilling, I'm sure quillers out there will say, oh no, you shouldn't do it like this, actually this is the easiest way. I'm sure there must be an easier way, because it did take me all fingers and thumbs trying to get things glued together. So I tried using a crocodile clip to keep things steady, which I had to abandon in the end. And I think in hindsight, I should have just gone and glued one at a time rather than trying to arrange them all first. So I'm trying to arrange them all so they're all neat and tidy, and that's probably pointless. If I'd have just glued the end one next to the other, I'd have come out with as good a result without the fuss. So as long as you know which order you're going to be gluing in, I think that's all that needs to happen. And as you'll see, I'm now loosely arranging them and then trying to glue them together. So you just want to plop a little dab of glue at one end and squeeze it next to the next layer. Because effectively we're going to pull all the layers together so they're nicely stuck, and then we'll start the curling process. So I've just skipped a little bit there just so that I don't bore you to death. And the important thing is now I've got all my layers glued together. Depending on your glue, you'll just need to let that go off so they're really secure. So when I was experimenting for my layout, I was a bit hasty, and quite a few occasions my glue came undone, and then you're having to glue it together again and it all just gets a bit messy. So you can see the kind of effect I'm going for. I'm just doing a nice little swirl on a card just to demonstrate the process. And I think my idea is I'm going to do kind of a starburst effect. Is that the right word? A shooting star effect, that's probably what I'm looking for. So I used a bit of the gold Nouveau drops that came in November's colour kit. And I'm also going to use some just clear glitter, stickles or Nouveau drops. And I'm just spreading that onto the background, just so that beneath my shooting star there'll be a little glitter and colour. So I would have filmed the process for my layout, but it took me hours and hours and hours of toing and froing and deciding what to do. So I just thought I've abandoned my video and I've gone with a card just to demonstrate what I did. It's much quicker for you, but it's exactly the same process that I used. So while I'm letting the glitter dry, I'm now going to try and curl those layers. And there's lots of YouTube videos about for quilling, and as I say, I'm a complete novice and beginner at this. So this is what I did, and there might be better ways. I'm sure there are better ways. So I'm just going to try and curl all those layers together in a tight circle. So as I mentioned earlier, the more layers you have, the more difficult this part of the process is. So the fewer the layers, the easier they'll curl. So as you tighten, the paper kind of remembers the shape that you made. And you can make some beautiful shapes here. I mean, that would look fantastic on a card, wouldn't it? That would be such an easy card to make as well. But I'm going to replicate kind of what I did on my layout. And I did exactly the same thing to create that curve. And then I kind of straighten it out a little bit just to get the shape that they actually wanted. Now on my process on the scrapbook layout, I actually glued the other end, and by pulling the strands they move apart from one another, and then by gluing it, it kind of sticks into place. And whereas the card, because it's a shooting star effect I'm after, I'm going to leave all those ends loose. Now the most tricky part about this whole process, I think, is actually gluing it to your page. I did watch some YouTube videos to see what was the best way. And one that I saw was actually spreading your glue onto a palette of some sort. And I've just used a bit of acetate. Making a thin layer so that you spread it all out with, as you can see, a palette knife or a card. And then is to dip your quilled piece into the glue, just so it picks that up. Now, in this case, it didn't work very well because I didn't get very many pieces stuck down, or it didn't pick up enough glue. So maybe I didn't have enough glue on the palette. But it's just one way. Again, I'm sure there's probably better ways of doing things. But essentially I was trying to get some glue onto the bottom of the quill and then kind of arrange the elements into the shape that I wanted. Now, I found that it wasn't working for me on this instance, so I ended up going back to my glue pot and then trying to apply a small amount of glue to the back. I guess the danger with this is that you'll be able to see the glue once it's dried, but I think you just need to take your time and go as carefully as you can. So I'm just trying to arrange those layers now into the shape that I'm after. I think my next step for me will be to get a book or watch some more YouTube videos. I actually really enjoyed the process. I thought it gave me a really good effect, especially on my layout, because it was just something really different. And on my layout, I had taken a selfie on Snapchat, and it had a real kind of retro vibe to it. And it was great because it had, lots of filtering and hid all my wrinkles. But I thought the actual picture went fantastic with January's kit. And I really, really loved some of the phrases that are on the chipboard stickers this month. And the one that I used, I think it was a die cut piece, was 2021, I'm ready for you. And I thought, actually, I think that's a really good idea because I've really had enough of 2020 for sure. So I'm ready to get going and be more positive and hopefully have a better 2021. I'm sure we all wish that, actually. So I've kind of more or less got them into place, and my glue dries pretty quickly, so I'm now just going to trim it to length. I waited till the end just so that I could see how much I wanted. I didn't want it perfectly straight, which I could have done in advance. But you kind of get the idea here of what I was looking for. So I was just looking for a shooting star effect to make a birthday card. And I'm just adding a little bit of glue where it hasn't stuck down effectively. But this glue does take a little bit of time to dry, so I have to have a bit of patience and let that dry thoroughly. So now the base is dry, I've punched out some gold glitter card from my stash, just to get that shooting star effect. And I've punched out some of the stars in smaller sizes. My daughter's birthday is coming up very shortly, so I'm not going to show her the card because that will save me another job to create another card for her. But I think she'll really love this. So I'm just adding some little gold stars on top of the tail there, the shooting star tail. And it's a little bit tricky to get them to, because they're so thin, these individual pieces. You just got to take a bit of time to try and glue those down. And I'm going to use a sentiment from the Embellihsment Kit. So the chipboard stickers in there are just beautiful. There's lots of inspirational stickers. And I wanted some small alphas, and I think these came from, I'm going to guess, November's kit. But I will go and check for you and leave that in the description. But they're really tiny alphas, and they're just brilliant for just adding a small sentiment. I'm just going to take my time and line those up. Sorry about my head there. I think it's when you get close work like this, I need to lean over. But my camera doesn't quite reach to the edge of my desk. So I've used some foam tape just to bring up the level of that magical chipboard, so it's just level with the shooting star. And I'm just going to add on some little gems from, I think these are from Pink Fresh Studio. These are also from my stash. I have a lovely friend who bought me these at Christmas. So they are very precious, but you need to use them, don't you? So I think it just adds that final finishing touch. So I think actually I could make this card again much more quickly than this time around, and I'm absolutely thrilled with how it turned out. I think it's so pretty, it's really glittery, it's got a lot of detail, but actually quite simple to make. And it's a great way to use up your cardstock kit. So it's the final few touches. So I'm going to leave you with some of the close-ups from my scrapbook layout and also the card. I hope you've enjoyed the process, and I hope that you'll also have a go yourself, and I'd love to see what you do. If you want to share that with us on the Hip Kit Facebook group, I would really love to see that, and it would make me so happy. So thank you very much for joining me, and hopefully I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.